And welcome to The Bottom Line, where we unpack some of the main business and economic stories of the day. At TVP World, we've been closely following the concerning political unrest unfolding in Georgia after the recent parliamentary elections in October. However, today on The Bottom Line, we want to take a moment to better understand the economic situation of the country in recent years, but also now as tensions are on the rise. We are joined today by Professor Ioseb Berikashvili, Dean at Caucasus University in Tbilisi, Georgia. Hello, and thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your interest towards Georgia.
So I'd like to begin with highlighting that Georgia has been one of the fastest developing countries in the former Soviet Union. Can you tell us what this has been attributed to? What are its current strengths?
As you mentioned above, we had for 3 consecutive years after COVID crisis, we had very high economic growth. We had double-digit growth in 2021 and 2022, and around 8% last year, and we have now little less than 10% economic growth this year. We had fast recovery after COVID because we opened our borders to tourism, and tourism sector is a very important part of Georgian economy. Around 20% is tourism-related industries here in Georgia. That's why after the opening, we had very, very fast recovery. This was one reason. Another reason was war in Ukraine, because we had huge capital income from Russia. We had also big touristic inflows from Russian citizens since the war started in 2022, and also we are increasing our trade to Russia directly or indirectly. This is also important for Georgian economy, and of course it contains threats for our stability, and there is also one thing: we are much dependent on remittances from Europe and United States, and this was also increasing. We had a good increase in terms of FDI in recent years, because we are open economy, we are a small economy and very open. We have low tax burden, and that we have perks of doing business in Georgia, and we had good FDI inflows in Georgia.
So things have been going very well in Georgia, but my next question to you is this current situation of political unrest, and we're not really sure where this is going to go, can that actually have a negative impact on what has been built in Georgia?
Of course, it will have negative impact for sure. We don't know yet how it will end, because recent elections in Georgia were illegitimate, and it was not recognized by anyone except Venezuela's Maduro or Belarus or Russia and countries like that. So when our so-called prime minister declared that they are stopping negotiations with EU, people went to the streets. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands people are in the main street of Rustaveli every day and protesting this because Georgia is one of the most pro-European country in the world, and this is not only about Europe. This is about isolation of Georgia from the West, and it is important. It is important also for the economy of Georgia, because, as I mentioned above, Georgia is a small country. It was always open country. We don't have, for example, fossil fuels or things like that, and we have to be open to the world to rise our economy. And in isolation or under sanction, we will not survive. And
if I can just jump in, I wanted to just steer things to the Georgian economy in the context, obviously, of everything political that is happening. The Georgian Prime Minister, Irakli Kobakidze, has made it clear in his statements that the government, his government, is not interested in moving forward with EU accession, that he does not want to accept EU grants, and that until 2028, and that only in 2030 will Georgia be economically set to discuss EU membership. I was wondering whether you would be able to elaborate on those statements and what is really at stake when he says those things.
It's not working like that, you know. Around 80% of Georgian population are pro-European Union, and what's happening here is connected to Russia. This government, this current government, who is in charge now, are connecting to Russia, and Russia's interests are isolation of Georgia from the West. That's why this is happening here. They could not say that prior to election, because people did not vote. They were saying that they are also pro-European. They were lying, of course, but they were saying that. And after the elections, they said that they are stopping negotiations. They do not represent Georgian people, and this is not the will of Georgian people. That's why we see unprecedented amount of people in the streets of Georgia. This is their decision, not Georgia's decision.
And then obviously we see the violence that the Georgians are experiencing in their streets, which is absolutely unacceptable. But we also hear that the EU is looking to introduce some sanctions against Georgia on December the 16th. Can we expect this to make a difference?
Yes, we are expecting sanctions. So we don't know what sanctions it will be, but there will be sanctions definitely. And it depends what sanctions it will be, and consequences depend on that, economic consequences. But violence is clear. There are injuries of journalists, youngsters, actors, and popular people. They are heavily damaged, and police and special forces are brutal, and they are outlaws. I can say that. I mean, police and special forces, and what's happening in the streets of Georgia, not only in Tbilisi. It's totally unacceptable, and I think European Union will impose sanctions next Monday.
And we also hear that as of today, China and Georgia have signed a trade deal, and there is also visa-free travel. Can you tell us about the benefits that Georgia sees with aligning itself with Beijing?
We used to have a free trade agreement with China for several years, but this year our government signed the agreement of strategic partnership with China this is political agreement, not only economic agreement. They say that it's important to have good relations with China. It's one of the most important economies in the world. That's right, but we are aware about geopolitical risks which are connected to China. They are going to build Chinese, to build new deep port at Black Sea coast of Georgia, which will be strategic point, and geopolitically it's also connected to the risks. They say that China is big economy. They say to their voters, to the people of Georgia, that China is big economy, and there will be money from China after the isolation from the West.
And just very briefly, as we wrap up, what do you believe are the chances that the political unrest that you see in Georgia will bring Georgia back onto the path of EU accession? We are demanding resigning all these high-ranked officials, prime minister and ministers, and we are demanding new elections in Georgia. And if these elections will be democratic and people who will be elected are we will represent Georgian people, after that it will be easy for Georgia to return back on right path towards European Union. Okay, Professor Ioseb Berikashvili, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that was Professor Ioseb Berikashvili from Caucasus University. Thank you so much for joining us today on Business Arena. I was your host, Marie Cato. Make sure you join us every weekday for Business Arena at 5 p.m. CET on TVP World. And for the latest in regional business, follow us on X and on tvpworld.com. And for more news and features, stay with us on TVP World. Goodbye.